So my name's Toby Walsh. I'm a professor of artificial intelligence at the University of New South Wales. And I've been dreaming about building machines that could think since I was a very young boy. I mean, I read too much science fiction, authors like Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke. And those painted pictures of a future that was full of robots and intelligent machines. And I think that was a good picture of the future to imagine and to try and start creating oneself. And it's not just because they'll be useful machines, but I think actually it's one of those really deep fundamental questions. Is there something special about our intelligence, or is it something that we could actually build in silicon? And it's sort of question that is going to trouble us. It's one of the most profound questions I think we can actually ask over the next 100 years. There's not so many big, deep questions that are left. Are we alone in the universe? And it's up there, I think, in the impact it's going to have on our society. When we discover maybe that we are nothing special and our intelligence is something that only can we create in silicon, it's something we can easily surpass. That will be quite a useful, interesting, humbling moment for mankind, and hopefully we'll pause and reflect. And they will be also useful side effects. They'll be very useful machines to take over the drudgery in our lives and actually improve the quality of our lives. It's obviously not going to be Isaac Asimov's laws. They illustrate all of the challenges and the difficulty of trying to specify them. Actually, I have a more favourite one, which was I.J. Good's law, which was, treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. But even that's easily defeated. I mean, if you're a robot, you'd like to have electricity. But we don't like to be, on the receiving ends of lots of volts, whereas a robot does. So, even that you have to treat with, some careful concern. I think it highlights that it will be, I'm sure, a golden age of philosophy. Philosophy's got sidetracked by language, linguistics, and lots of other irrelevant things. And now it's going to have to wake up and help us solve some really deep fundamental problems that go to the core of our society and our values. And we're going to have to be very much more explicit with the sorts of decisions we make, because if we're going to program computers or have computers do those decisions, we're going to have to be much more precise about what are our values. And things like trolley problems, they're toy examples, but they illustrate. We've had trolley problems for 100 years, or as long as we've had cars, we've had trolley problems. They don't occur very often, but we hadn't had to solve the trolley problem in the sense that you had to make that split-second decision. And if you made the right decision, then everything was good, and hopefully you survived the accident. If you made the wrong decision, and you survived the accident, then if you had made the morally unacceptable decision to our society, then you might find yourself in court facing manslaughter charges or something similar. Now we're going to have to decide that up front. It's not something that gets decided post hoc. It's something that we have to really decide explicitly enough that we can program it. And it's not just trolley problems. I think trolley problems is a small, rare occurrence and not one that's going to really needs to trouble us that much. But it illustrates how all of the decisions that we start making in our society, once we let machines make them, then we're going to have to be much more precise about what the values they should have. Even that's already highlighted some of the challenges. So we want our values, but who is us? And how do we resolve the conflicts between different members of the society? You may have different values than I have, so which values do they end up to be? And then it's really difficult, if not near impossible, to actually work out what our values are. We're very poor at articulating them, and you certainly can't get them from just observing our actions, because we behave. We're just human, and we're very weak in certain aspects of our lives. We do things that we know are not reflecting our values just because we don't have the willpower not to do them. And then our morals change over time. Our morals today are probably different than they were a decade ago. So how do we allow this moral drift to happen in our machines as well? I think there's no reason why we shouldn't be holding up the machines to higher morals than ours, knowing that our morals are actually quite fallible and quite messy and dirty in places. We should be actually setting out with the goal of making sure our machines are actually super moral as well as super intelligent. So a chapter of my new book is actually discussing whether the singularity may never be near. And it discusses half a dozen or so different reasons why the singularity might never happen, things that might stop, run away, self-recursive improvement. And you can never say never. In science, it's impossible. We can never say never. Unless there is some absolutely critical idea that shows that something can't be possible, you always have to entertain the idea that it is possible. But if you read books like Superintelligence, I don't think those ideas are ever entertained at all. As soon as you have a machine that can improve itself, well, that's it. That's the takeoff point, and then you can discuss whether it's a hard or soft takeoff. But that's almost taken as a given, and that's actually why I wrote that chapter of the book, just to say, well, it's not a given. There are a number of reasons why it might not happen. We might run into some fundamental limit. Most of our universe, there are fundamental limits. The speed of light is a fundamental limit. You can't accelerate past the speed of light. There's the quantum uncertainty, so that you can't know things with any more certainty than Planck lets you know. So there's lots of limits, and we may just run into such limits in AI. There may be just limits to your intelligence. We already know that there are some sorts of limits. I mean, we know that if you walk into the casino and you're betting on roulette, then the best strategy requires you just to walk out of the casino. The roulette wheel is loaded against you. It doesn't matter how smart you are, you can't do better than that strategy. Even a quite dumb person can work out. So there is a limit, certainly in that little problem, as to how smart you can be about the problem. It doesn't matter how much you think about it. And I have a certain sympathy with Peter Norvik's argument, which is that it doesn't matter really how long you think about, or how hard you think about, or how well you think about the Middle East. You're probably not going to solve that problem. It's probably not a problem that intelligence alone is going to be able to crack. I mean, this is one of the questions where, again, we know so little. It could be close to human intelligence. I think it's probably very unlikely it's going to be less than human intelligence, because we already are an exemplar that you can get to human level intelligence. So it would be very surprising if we could build in silicon something at least as intelligent as us, if we put enough effort. And silicon has some natural advantages, of course. I mean, you put more memory in a computer than you can have in your brain, because your brain's constrained by the size of your skull. Your brain is constrained to run on 20 watts. We can call upon unlimited amounts of power for a computer. So there are a number of natural advantages that a machine could have over our biology. Of course, there may be theological objections. There may be consciousness requires some quantum weirdness, but even if it requires some quantum weirdness, we know that with exponential slowdown we can simulate any quantum system, or we believe we can simulate any quantum system in a conventional computer. So even if it's quantum weirdness, that doesn't stop it being emulated in silicon, maybe at a speed cost. So I see it unlikely that the limits are going to be less than human intelligence. They're almost surely going to be bigger than human intelligence. I'd be very surprised. It's, again, putting ourselves on a special pedestal to say the limit's going to be our intelligence. There's no evidence to suggest that would be the case. But whether it's much above our intelligence or way above our intelligence, I think we've got nothing really to tell us. Evolution is not necessarily finds the optimal solution to any problem. Evolution takes a long time. We may have still a lot of evolution to do. So it's very hard to say what sort of intelligence it is. But it could equally be twice our intelligence or 5 times our intelligence, which would still leave us with some very useful machines. Yes, I mean, I like to remind people that we're talking about artificial intelligence, and most people focus on the intelligence. And they don't focus on that word artificial at the front. It may be quite a different intelligence to our natural intelligence. And as an example, artificial flight, the flight that we do in aeroplanes, is very different to natural flight, the flight that birds and bees do, with flapping their wings. And actually our solution, artificial flight, is a much more efficient solution. We fly around the planet, we fly at much faster speeds than the birds are ever going to fly. So we've solved the same problem. How do you actually get a heavier than air object to fly, to move through the air in a sustained way? But we found a much better way than evolution has found. The British title has a slightly different title in Britain, but I think the British title is not only a good title, but also gives you a very good summary of what the book is. It's called Android Dreams. It's about my dreams of building intelligent machines. And the subtitle is The Past, Present and Future of Artificial Intelligence. And so it goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks and the invention of logic, and traces the history of how AI came to be a discipline through Leibniz and Boole and Babbage and Gödel and Turing and all the people who laid the intellectual foundation stones of AI. And then the middle third of the book is all about what is AI today and what we can realistically do and not do with AI, to cut through a bit of the hype that you hear. And then the final third of the book is a bit about some of the risks some of the societal impacts it's likely to have, and some speculation as to where it may go in the next 50 years or so. Well, we should be very concerned about the near-term risk of killer robots. And the risk there is, to begin with at least, is not smart AI, it's actually stupid AI. It's not malevolence, actually, it's incompetence, that we'll be giving the ability to take life or death decisions to machines that are not capable to do that in a responsible way. And sure enough, in 50 years' time, they'll be much more capable, and then there are other issues that come into play, whether they'll be used as weapons of terror by despots and terrorists against us, as they surely will be if and any ethical safeguards that might be put in them will be turned off by these people who won't care about turning them on civilian populations, suppressing civilian populations with these weapons that have industrialized warfare. And the other near-term concern I have is technological unemployment. How automation is going to increasingly impact upon our workforce, is going to remove some people's jobs. Of course, the same technology is going to create new jobs, but we have no idea whether more jobs get created than destroyed. That is the history of technology so far, but there's no guarantee, especially when most of our uniqueness seems to be disappearing to the machines, that we will necessarily have as many jobs. And then how do we adapt to that? How do people reskill for those new jobs that occur? And how do we adapt to society? How do we change our society so that maybe we can work less, we can let the robots take the sweat, and we can enjoy the finer things in life? It could be the next renaissance where we get to do all the things that we really value and not spend our time working. I mean, I go by Oscar Wilde's statement that work is the only truly obscene four-letter word. Definitely, the blue-collar jobs, some of them will be so low paid that it won't be worth putting a robot in there, and some of them will be the subject of Moravec's paradox that you just talked about earlier, which is that some of the easiest things that we do are some of the hardest things to get computers to do. So there will be a certain amount of hollowing out of the middle. Some of the middle-class professions that we thought were safe because they were cognitive will no longer be safe. Journalists and lawyers and accountants will find that many of their jobs or parts of their jobs become automated, and then maybe we'll need less accountants and less lawyers. That might sound to some people as a good thing, but not if you're an accountant or lawyer. Yes, that's another short-term concern that I have, that we will be handing over decisions to machines that we might not, we perhaps shouldn't hand over to machines, that they're making decisions about who gets locked up in our society. Partly because, again, of incompetence. We've seen lots of examples of algorithmic discrimination. So we want to make sure that we design them well. But even if we make sure that they aren't discriminating, whether we're giving over too much of our humanity, it's always worth remembering that the most important decisions in our society, the ones that serious crime we do in front of a jury of our peers, and we've done that for hundreds of years now. And I'm not sure that we want to wake up in a world in which we just have discovered that machines are deciding who is locked up and said, I'm sorry you're locked up because I decided. That there are perhaps some things that we should, even if we can get machines to do them better, that we keep for ourselves, because that goes to the heart of the core of our humanity. Well, I don't think there's one thing that people want to, I think people should understand or know, because I just wrote a whole book really trying to encapsulate those ideas. But I think and it's one of those funny things, when you write a book, actually you discover the message at the end is not the message you started with. But I actually would like people to really understand the message that I realized was shining out of the book as I wrote it, and I read more around the societal impact of AI, and a lot of stories broke in the 6 months or so it took to write the book. A lot of new things, recent news came along, and that people make the mistake. They think the future's fixed, and you have to adapt to the future, and that's not the case. The future is the product of the choices we make today, and we can make choices that take us down one road and choices that will take us down another, and it's not inevitable. We construct the society we want to live in. We can. As a good example I give people is television. In Australia and the United Kingdom, it was decided that television was a public good, that there would not be a fee, but rather a tax, and then you end up with arguably some of the best television in the world. And the BBC doesn't have to worry about commercial pressure. It's guaranteed its income. The programs don't sell objects to you. There are no commercials that get in the way. And you've got some very fine television. I think that was a very good decision. But many other countries made the opposite decision. Said, no, television has a commercial opportunity, and so it'll have to pay for itself. We made the decision quite early on that we would let politics on television. And we didn't realize that the consequence. We could have decided, like commercials, that it wasn't going to be allowed on television. Television would be merely for informing people and educating people and entertaining people. And that it should therefore be a politic-free zone. That might have been a better choice. I mean, because now we've ended up with the first reality star president. And we're facing up to the consequences of that politics is now conducted almost exclusively on television. And politicians play to the TV crowd more than anything else. And I'm not sure that that's giving us a very healthy political debate anymore. And so maybe we should reflect on that decision we made some 50, 60 years ago when we decided that politics could be on television. And it's rather taken over. Television is now the forum in which politics happens. So in terms of funding for AI, I actually don't think we need any new mechanisms at all. The current mechanisms that we fund most science is perfectly adequate. We have to be very careful, for science as a whole, not just for AI, that we do fund enough fundamental research. But research is a public good and it receives public money. And it's a pretty self-correcting mechanism, so I don't think we have to give special privileged attention to any part of AI. AI safety gets actually quite a significant chunk of money these days. And funding is pretty self-correcting, and I think we get pretty good results. We've got pretty good results out of the last 500 years of science. And so I'm not worried that we need new mechanisms. I think, in fact, quite the opposite. I think new mechanisms will only distort. It's very difficult to predict the future and very difficult to work out what you should be funding. And it's much better to use a distributed mechanism like we do now and to rely on peer assessment than to put someone on a specialized privileged platform. Those tend to be poor decisions, we find out in retrospect.